And now we are back from this long talk about how if you are an English speaker this, if you are an English speaker that, and so on and so forth. There was a lot of talk in English, about English, and if you know English, what if? Well, plot twist, dear listeners, now we are going to turn the tables and see why not English. The next question is, why should one not choose English as their first foreign language to learn? Probably the main reason for asking this question was because we wanted to show the benefits of learning other languages. Personally, the answers we got on this particular question were my favorite. They sparked a bit of depth, a bit of reasoning, outside of the mainstream. Generally, it depends on the person and their preferences, as Anthony said.
Well, that would be, for me, pretty simple. It depends on who you want to deal with, who you want to build relationships with. If my focus is on French-speaking, the French-speaking world, I would learn some French, definitely. At one point in my, back in the late 90s, I was working at a telecom company and had a lot to do with Latin America. So I got myself a tutor, getting some 30, 40 private lessons from Mariluz from Colombia, just to get that ice broken. I can talk to people just a little bit at least. And that was awesome. That was really great. I just would have wanted to do it more, but that's how it was, So, and that's what the only reason was that I was supposed to talk to people from Latin America and Central America. So I wanted to get, some good feeling saying that I respect you. I'm learning your language, at least a couple of words, so we can smile and laugh, and then we can move on.
This was strongly supported by Greg.
Well, if your focus is not on things that involve the English-speaking world, then English wouldn't necessarily be useful at all. So if you're wanting to work in, for example, China, then you should focus on Chinese. If you want to do work with the North Africa or the Middle East, then I would think Arabic would be something that you should go for. And certainly if you're looking at South America, you got to know Spanish, or if it's Brazil, Portuguese, because English is not really widely spoken in those countries at all. But if you're looking at having the maximal likelihood of global, reach, then again, of course, English is your best bet right now, just because of its role as a kind of quasi lingua franca in international discourse. If you get someone from Korea together with someone from, just choose a random country in Africa, like Chad, then the only language they're likely to possibly have in common would be some form of English. So I chose Chad because it was a French colony, so I wanted to think of one that wasn't an English colony where they'd obviously know educated people would know English. So yeah, I just let's say Korea and Argentina. Obviously, a Korean person should learn Spanish if he wants to do something serious in Argentina. But if they just had brief interactions, then English is probably still going to be your default fallback on that. Not to pick on either of those countries. I don't know why I chose those countries. They just randomly popped into my head right now. But yeah, I think that again, if you have to be tempered your what your focus is. Central and West Africa, French would be still very useful. That's a language that you absolutely need to know if you're in that part of the world. So. Not Nigeria, although even Nigeria recognizes the value of French because they've made French a sort of quasi-official language there, and one that they're teaching more, just because most of their neighbors are Francophone countries.
I think that you could ask the question differently. Say, should you not choose English as your second language to learn? And I would say, absolutely. You should not start with English. And I think the reason is simply that if you learn a second language and it's English, the chances are you're going to stop there. I'm talking about this purely strategically. It's very simple. If I'm French and I learn English, and this is actually my story, because I learned German, but it was kind of at school, because my dad had this crazy idea. And most people will, for example, learn English, and then that's it. I'm satisfied. I have lots of network connections. I live in the UK now. I teach in English. I do everything in English. So that's it. Do I need to learn another language? I don't. I can communicate with anyone. But if I learn another language, I'll stumble on English down the line. Believe me, it will happen. It's kind of like impossible to avoid these days. But if I learn another language really well before that, I have 3 languages now. Bonus. So I think strategically, I would always start with another language. But as to tell you which one, I have zero. It all depends what you want to do. We go back to the other questions, right? Politics, business, love. No, that's just a bad joke. Anything you want to investigate in terms of culture or political or philosophical kind of history, you might want to go down that path. Because of course, reading philosophers in German in the original language is very likely to be a very different experience than from reading a translation.
Once again, it's kind of context specific. If you are looking for a job in opera singing, probably it should be Italian, yeah, because most operas, historically speaking, were written in Italian, yeah. Or if you live, for instance, in southern Switzerland, and you wanna continue working in your country, but you wanna have access to a broader job market, it probably should be German, which you should learn. So it kind of depends on the context, on your own individual wishes, what you want to do. I would say there are no proper, appropriate choices which would fit everyone.
Why should English not be the first foreign language to learn? This is a question I think we should ask ourselves more these days. One day in the future, my kids will most likely speak their first words in Lithuanian. What foreign language should I, as their parent, choose to teach them first? English might seem like an obvious answer, but I think there lays a trap. Indeed, English is an absolutely essential language to know if you wish to establish yourself well in the sphere of influence that Lithuania currently finds itself in. But should English be the first foreign language to muster? To be frank, for Lithuanian kids born in the 21st century, growing up and educating yourself without learning English would be almost impossible. Same goes for most other European countries, and many countries beyond Europe, such as India and Nigeria. I would even say that this might be true for the majority of the countries in the world. In these places, if one will receive education, they will also learn English, one way or another, at least enough to get by. And when you know English, this allows you to talk to nearly anyone. And this is of course great, but also, in a certain way, it is a curse. Many of my English-speaking friends identify this as the reason for why it's so difficult for them to learn foreign languages. Imagine you're a Brit and you study German. You go on a trip to Germany to improve your German. You try speaking German to the locals, but you are not that great. And Germans, they're typically very good in English. And typically what would happen in this case is that the people you're talking to after seeing your struggle, they would simply switch to English. The conversation indeed goes smoother than it did in German, but the point of the conversation, at least to you, was to practice your German, and you're no longer doing that. In a way, English, very often, becomes the last language one learns. Knowing English, one very rarely encounters situations where they are forced to speak or understand another language to communicate. This is the reason for why I would personally like to teach my kids other languages before English one day in the future. But again, this is just my take on it. Let's come back to the questions.